call the meeting order at 6:07
Yeah.
PM. So our meeting tonight was to, um, to talk about in Wardsboro, a long-term sub for first and second grade. We've had some advertising out and we haven't had a lot of luck with, viable candidates. So we thought it would be good to just hear from the administration, what they're finding, and some possible options. We're not going to make any decisions tonight. We just wanted to kind of get ahead of the curve because we also have a meeting next week. So we didn't want to make a decision, all in, we wanted to be able to have some time to think about it and have some discussion. So I'd like to turn it over to Bob and
Yeah.
whoever.
Yeah, so actually, I'd love to just start off by introducing the new principal of Wardsboro, who is here with us today. And a lot of you guys have not had a chance to meet her yet. But Francesca Palumbo is the new Wardsboro principal. You've heard the name, now you can see the face. And I'm going to actually turn it over to Francesca. She can say a little bit about herself to kind of kick us off and then jump into the work that she's been doing. And Tracy is here from Dover as well because they've really been working as a team on this, which has been really cool. So I'll let them talk a little bit about that process and where they've been, who they've talked to and all that. But tell us a little about yourself first, Francesca, so they know who you are.
Sure. Well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited to be at Wardsboro. I left rural Vermont a little bit to the big city of Brattleboro, and I really miss kind of the small feel of the small community school. And years ago, I worked in a school, well, it was Whitingham before it came Twin Valley. That was a multi-grade school. My kids went through that. So I think there's some challenges with that, but I also think that there's some real benefits to it. And it's kind of fun because I know a lot of the people in the community, and if I don't know them, I know somebody they know. So it kind of feels like a really strong community from what I can tell so far. So yeah, I hit the ground running July 1st. I'd like to just share with you some of the steps I've tried to take to fill that position. I started off, one of my colleagues from Academy School, Heidi Pancake, used to be an educator at Wardsboro, hooked me up with I think she's called the headmaster, maybe at Mountain School, that they had a candidate that they had not accepted for a kindergarten position. And so they gave me that number. I did reach out to them, haven't heard back yet. I also reached out to a lot of colleagues in the area that, I figured just get the word out there, and hopefully get some feedback. I reached out to a retired teacher from Dover to see if she wanted to come back on board for a few months. She declined, but I get it. So we still have feelers out. Tracy was great. She put out kind of hey, our sister school's looking for a long-term sub on their Facebook page. I went on Indeed and I put a new posting because I find that if you don't post regularly on there, it kind of gets buried and it gets kind of hard to find the position. I have gotten some responses, some locally, some not. I was joking with Bob, some were from like New Mexico and things, but I did get a couple locals, so I'm just waiting to hear back from them. I just did that last week. So I think we've gotten a lot of feelers out, but there's still that concern, August, the summer's going by pretty quickly. So Bob and
Francesca, just I don't want to interrupt you, but just to jump in and just so people have a sense, we're talking about a 3-month window for a long-term sub.
Right. Yeah.
So basically start the school year for 3 months or so.
Yeah. And I talked to Caitlin today and she said she would be back right after Thanksgiving. So yeah, it's short term, but we were hoping to fill it with, one of our more veteran seasoned retired folks, but I get that doesn't always work. But anyway, so Bob and Tracy and I met and we kind of brainstormed a little bit and we talked about getting together some options that we may have with our staff between Wardsboro and then with Dover support as well. And so looking at it school-wide, looking at it district-wide, and then if we had to, looking at it SU-wide and see what resources were there. So the three of us met, we came up with some options, and then Tracy and I both decided we needed to pull our staffs together to talk about the situation and get their input, which we both did. And today we had a meeting with both staffs together to brainstorm even more. And I thought, Tracy, you can jump in. I thought it went well. I think everybody was really honest about some of the options we threw out, whether they would work and why they wouldn't, and even came up with some new ones.
Yeah, it was really great to just see the many minds come up with some scenarios and then tweak some of the ones that we already had. And then we're like, oh, that's not going to work out. So more minds really helped with this, and it was really great.
Yeah, so I know we don't have anything solid right now, but I think we have some really good options out on the table. Some of them involve just the Wardsboro staff, maybe shifting some things a little bit. But that we have to talk more about that, and Bob can speak to that because there's some grant funding issues and whatnot. We talked about, pre-K and what to do with pre-K with small numbers. I feel, and Tracy, you can chime in too, that it was overwhelming that we don't want to send pre-K anywhere. We want to keep them in the building. That seemed really important across the board.
And just to clarify, that concept was based on the idea of using that staff member in a different way and not having a pre-K was one of the scenarios we talked about.
Yeah. And my concern with that is, there's other places certainly that pre-K could go, but they're little, and I as a parent wouldn't want to send my child somewhere and then send them back somewhere 3 months later. So I think that we're committed to finding a different solution there so that we can keep all kids in the building.
And let me jump in one more time, Francis. Sorry.
No, interrupt all you want, please.
I want to give you just a little bit of a pat the back here too, because your background is in special education, which means that you have a pretty good perspective on sort of all the grades and what particularly around what the needs of the highest need kids would be. And so the approach that she's had with Tracy joining her in this was really thinking about how do we ensure, because grades 1 and 2, the start of the year for grades 1 and 2, this is a big deal. This is something we want to make sure we get right. We've seen things not go right in other situations, and we want to make sure this goes smoothly, particularly at this grade level. And so really being creative in the thinking on this is really important, because this age group, particularly as we roll out a new literacy curriculum for these early readers, is critical to make sure that we do it well. So we don't want to just throw in a day-to-day substitute into that situation who's not going to have the pedagogical understanding to make sure our kids get what they need. So just want to say, so Francesca's experience and years and years of experience in special ed has helped sort of pull that together in her thinking. So that's been really important.
So can we get from you guys, what are some of the drop dead dates? How long do you wait to see if we get an applicant? That's one of the things we had in the 6th grade. And right. What are some of the guardrails that you want to set up? There was some talk about maybe doing something with pre-K because they can tuition anyways, but that sounds like that's a guardrail that we don't want to cross. Can we start with those things that are important?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we've ruled out would be moving any kids, right? And one of the other guardrails that we've used is trying to have a solution that has the least amount of impact on families and kids and on staff. And so, as an example, one idea that came out of the conversation was the potential move of someone from Dover to fill the gap. But as we unpacked, A, what the best scenario for that would be, which person it would be, and B, what the implications of that were, I think we kind of took that off the table too, because the impact was significantly broad on lots of families in both schools. And so those things we've used those as our guardrail to say, too much impact, too many people dragged into it. We want to ensure this is like minimal. With the other guardrail being the highest possible quality of structure we can get because of what we just talked about with the first and second grade. So those are kind of those guardrails that you're asking about. As far as like a date goes, I mean, I don't think we really have a date in our mind. We know that teachers arrive, I think it's the 21st, is that right? The first day with teachers. And so that's, a couple, 3 weeks away. And so it's getting there. It's getting there. I think we're comfortable. We're not comfortable at this point publicly talking about what the option is, but we are fairly comfortable that with a few things to be figured out that we have a fail safe in the event that we don't find a candidate through the outside. And so we have like the backup plan, I guess you would call it, which is a pretty strong plan, just involves some tweaking still. But we do have this other applicant that Francesca is reaching out to as well. And so we feel we've exhausted that. If that doesn't go anywhere, if that person is not viable, particularly in this particular situation for, first and second grade, then we have this other plan that we could go to with minimal disruption. That we feel like the SU can provide some backup support to fill in some gaps to help that out. And so, yeah, we feel comfortable that we have a good backup plan. We just want people to know that we're working on it. We're thinking about it. As Francesca went through the list of things that she's done, and the collaborative opportunities with the two schools as a district and the staffs all getting together in the summer, that by volunteering, people are committed to solving the problem. We wanted the families to know, we want the board to know that we are working on it and we have some ideas, and we're not quite there yet, but maybe by the next board meeting when you guys meet, we'll have something firmer to roll out. But I think, I would say the middle of August feels like kind of a hard deadline. If we don't have a candidate by that point, then plan B will become our plan A. Does that answer what you were looking for? Yeah. Okay.
So, because one of the things is, what can the board do to help? And then I'd really love to hear from the rest of the board, from any staff that's here, and then from any parents, any concerns or thoughts, or there may be an idea out there that was missed.
Yep.
And then, I think at the end, what can the board do to help? One of the things that we looked at with last year's situation was, if parents wanted to have their child transfer over to Dover, we would open that, make that available for consistency. And that's something I think the board could do as a policy. We have a policy on moving back and forth. We could, we can make that offer if, people that deadline's passed. So I just wanted to see what we could do to help, and then where you're.
Well, I think you set it up great. I'd like to be hearing some. I don't know if the board members want to see the parents talk first, or whether the board members want to talk first, but either way, to have some sort of like feedback or or even questions for us where we're at and what we're thinking. Again, I apologize for these guys not getting into some of the weeds and some of the specifics, but because we have a few things to tweak, we just don't want to name names or talk about actual specifics until we really have something ready that's operational. So, but these guys would love to take questions as well, I'm sure. And so,
Chad.
I think it would be, I know you don't want to get in the weeds of the minutia, but I think it would be really important to, instead of the vagueness of what sort of things have been discussed as possibilities, so that we're not in a repetition, and, to hear it straight from, you as professionals, and then have parents, because that'll give us avenues to other ideas.
Sure.
But if we are just regurgitating, what has already been discussed, then that would be less of a strong use of time, in my humble opinion.
No, I totally agree, Chad. Thank you for saying that. So the three basic concepts were rearrange staff in Wardsboro to make a cover, bring someone from Dover to make a cover and rearrange there to fit that. Or the third option, which was mentioned, was closing down the pre-K on a temporary basis to have a staff member cover in that regard. So that was sort of the three conceptual things, with, of course, the fourth one, which is really first, which is to get a sub, someone qualified from the outside who applies. So that's sort of plan A. And then those other three things became, plans B, C, and D. Does that help?
It does. Thank you. And just a quick follow-up. Can you just, for all of us, kind of give us what would qualify as or who might qualify as a qualified sub. What do they need to have in order to be considered for that job?
Sure. So, I mean, the ideal would obviously be like a retired teacher, someone who's got some experience, who's currently licensed, who can just swoop in and be like, I know what I'm doing and roll, right? But secondary to that, someone who is licensable, because the period of time that we're talking about, even though it's only 3 months, is by license rules, if you have someone, if the absence is more than 30 days, you have to have a licensed person. So we really need a licensed person. So if someone had a bachelor's degree, you could get a provisional or an emergency license potentially for that person. But again, so that's sort of the minimum as far as the qualifications go. The way that we've been thinking about though is that like someone rolling in with a BA in environmental science who can get a provisional license, as an example, might not be the person you want teaching first and second graders, because they might not have any understanding of early literacy and not be able to just roll in and do that. So there's a line between like what qualifies you and then what our bar is for a highly qualified person to take over, particularly with this group of first and second graders. But yeah, BA or BS is sort of the minimum bar to get provisional or emergency licensure. Does that help? Good. Okay. Yeah, Kendra with her hand up.
Okay, I hope you guys can hear me. I'm a parent of a going into second grade kid at Dover, and I'm just very sensitive to the idea of what might disrupt second grade for that grade. And since that is the population you're talking about with Wardsboro, that grade has a long history of not having consistency. I mean, they came into pre-K 3 as hybrid remote. Pre-K 5, Lindsay was, blessed to add a baby to their family, but it left them with a long-term sub. Kindergarten, we love Heather and Nancy, but it was, a back and forth classroom there. First grade had some dynamics within their already large group for this area. They're, hovering around 15, if I remember correctly. So just kind of the vague idea that perhaps a couple weeks before school, I'm going to have to assist with preparing my child for yet another year that's very inconsistent or has a dramatic shift in what they were expecting, really kind of has my personal anxiety ratcheting up.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I totally appreciate where you're coming from, and thanks for bringing that up. I think that option was on the table to talk about because we wanted to ensure that we were thinking about this from a systemic perspective and not just from a Wardsboro problem. And I think that that one was near the very bottom, if not the bottom, based on how the analysis that Tracy and Francesca did together. So I feel like that's not really a real threat at this point, but I did mention it was one of the things that was talked about.
Yeah, I think our goal really is to find a solution that's going to have the least impact on the kids, because we realize how important that is. So to have somebody that can be there consistently for those 3 months is really important. And I think we're on the right path. There's just a couple boxes we got to check, but I agree with you, Kendra. I wouldn't want that as a parent either.
I think that also fits your least disruptive to the least number.
Yeah, in order to do something there, if you're taking a teacher, then you got to move kids around and divide stuff and replace and restructure, and that's impacting multiple grades at multiple classrooms and lots of kids and families. So that was one of the first ones to be poo-pooed. Nobody? I don't see any other questions, right? It must be meeting adjourned, right? No, I think the concerns that you guys that brought up already, I think are important, and we are hoping to have something more detailed for you by next week, right?
Next Monday.
And if not, it'll be soon after that. And so we just felt it was important for you guys to be in the loop. The board wanted to be in the loop, and rightfully so. And Yeah, I think what's different for me looking at this is that it feels a lot like a district problem that's being solved by district leadership, and not a school problem trying to be solved by school leadership. And that to me is really powerful. And the fact that you had staffs from both schools together today on a Zoom, talking about it and strategizing and brainstorming during the summer is a testament to the staff that you guys have. So really, really good stuff from where I'm sitting. I really,
Yeah.
even though it's not it's for a bad reason, it's really powerful stuff, and it really helps unite folks.
And I think that we were all in consensus that we needed to have a solution that was wholly student-centered.
Mhm. Yeah, and I just want to echo what Bob was saying about the staff. Like, I was just in awe about how flexible and willing people were to just build an option that was going to really support our kids. Put away other pieces and history and all that. It's like, what are we going to do moving forward to help these kids for these 3 months? And we had some great conversation between Wardsboro and Dover, and I thought it was really, really great.
You know, as a board member, that makes us feel really good too, because it's for a long time it seemed like it was two separate entities. So that sounds like it's a real positive move too, and hopefully we learned a lot from last year. So, but again, that's why as a board, when Kate and I meet with Bob, to set up the agenda for the meetings, we thought it'd be really good to get this out there so parents and staff and everybody could at least be aware of what's coming on, so it wasn't a shock if we have a meeting next week and we're told that, we couldn't find a long-term sub and here's what we're going. So the only other thing I'd like to say is there is a lot of people on the call. I'm not sure, I can't see that well who's all on the screen, but if you have any thoughts or ideas or something comes to you, please send it to one of the administrators or to central office so that if you can't make next week's meeting, we'll have your comments, your thoughts anyways to review and throw into the mix. And we don't have to stay on just because we have a meeting, but this was the one topic. So unless anybody else from the board or chatting or from the parents of the public, we'll call the meeting. Is there any other, besides Chad, you got to speak once, is there any other board member? Go ahead, Kate.
I just want to say thank you to Tracy and Francesca for working on this with Bob. It's really important to me, not just as a board member, but I also have a second grader in the Wardsboro classroom. So I appreciate you thinking not just about the 1-2 class at Wardsboro, but all of the students at the Wardsboro campus, all of the students at the Dover campus, and utilizing all of our team members between the two buildings to do what's best for the education of all of our students. I appreciate that sentiment as we move forward to this year.
Thank you, Kate. Go ahead, Dwight, and then I'll go to Chad. We'll go after Dwight.
Thanks, Rich. I mean, I think it's really impressive to see you guys working together on this problem. I think that just to see everyone kind of trying to come together, I'm really happy to hear that moving the kids out of the school is kind of off the table, and that's really nice to hear. Right off the bat. These are difficult situations. I don't think they're going to get any easier based on everything Bob's been telling us. We're going to be in this spot, I think, probably more times than we want to be moving forward. So, the more we get through this and work together, I think the better off we're going to be. So well done, everyone. And hopefully we'll come to a solution that's as good as it can be. And it may not be perfect, but hopefully it'll be as good as it can be. So thank you.
Chad, and then we have a parent. Parents.
Thanks, Rich. Just a suggestion question. Has anyone done any direct outreach to some of the early childhood centers kind of throughout, particularly thinking about, both Stratton, Mount Snow, where their enrollments might be light for the fall, where we have folks that are involved with the early childhood education community that may have at least, that basic, BABS, Bob, as you mentioned, for provisional licensure, as well as the experience in working with, younger children it might be an opportunity to steal someone for 3 months if their enrollment happens to be low. And then, as we gear up for the wintertime, and they typically see higher enrollments, just a thought.
Yeah, I don't
That's
think
a great idea. Thank you. And that's why we have this, because, collective minds come up with a lot of choices. I forgot to mention, I did reach out to Keene State College because I know in other schools I'd been at, they have an internship program. So I have talked to her a couple times. I'm going to call her back tomorrow, but I will reach out to Stratton and Mount Snow. Thanks.
Are you set, Chad? Okay. Is it Kate?
Kate Gallagher.
Kate,
Hi, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Kate Gallagher. I'm a parent of, like Kendra, a child going into second grade. And so just on a topic of the early education, I would maybe add Winston Prouty to that
Okay.
list in Brattleboro. But then also my question was just the timeline. So do you guys feel that when we regroup in about a week that you'll have an understanding on if I think you mentioned that there was potentially a candidate who's still maybe in the mix, if that person will or will not be an option, and then be able to maybe share in more detail the backup plan and or kind of if you have to rearrange what that looks like?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Francis.
I think that if I can't get a response from this person by next week, that's a little bit telling. So I would suspect we would move forward with our in-house plan. Bob, right? Yeah, I see you nodding. So I think we're getting to a point where we need to make a decision. Yeah, if that person doesn't get back to me in a week, I don't know if we should even follow through with them. But I appreciate your addition to Winston Prouty, and I will call those three tomorrow.
No, I appreciate that. And then, so when you say your in-house plan, do you think at that point, then you guys would feel comfortable sharing, like, if I understand, it was like either rearrange at Wardsboro or bring a Dover staff over to Wardsboro and rearrange at Dover? Do you think by the next meeting you would be able to share, if you rearrange, what the impact of that rearrangement looks like?
Yeah, there's a pretty good chance that the nuts and bolts pieces that she's referenced that have to get nailed down have to do with some so staff get some staff come through River Valley, some staff come through the SU, depending on what their role is and what their job is and how they get funded. And so if someone's going to get moved into a situation where they be a locally funded position, we have to figure out how that works on the financial side. And so that's some of the hoops we would have to jump through to make that happen. So yeah, I think we would hopefully have that worked out by that time, because I think it's important not only for families and for the kids, but for the staff to know what it's going to look like. And if we're moving staff around to have them help out in some way, then they have the right to know what that is as soon as we possibly can figure it out. So, yep. That's the hope.
Okay, I appreciate that. Is that meeting already scheduled on the calendar and I just didn't see it, or am I?
Yeah, that's
missing?
the regular first week.
Okay.
First Monday in August meeting.
Okay.
The books for Monday.
at Wardsboro School, it'll be on on the internet too. But our first is always in Wardsboro.
The floors, you'll be able to come in and see the cleaning that's been done.
That's right. Put your ice skates on.
Thank you.
We want to hold this as a live meeting in Wardsboro because it really affects them more so than Dover. But we were that got kiboshed because on top of being the new administrator, she was cleaning all the floors in there too, I guess.
Yep.
So anyways, we're so yes, next Monday at 6 o'clock, and this will be one of the items we discuss and see where everything stands. Any other parents? Kate is good. I think she just didn't put her hand down, so that's okay. Any other staff or parents? Going once, going twice. I sold. I think we're good. Please.
One more question, Rich.
Go ahead, Joey.
Just quickly, I'm assuming, or if we do have to go to Plan B and restructure a little bit, we'll continue to look for a long-term sub during that process, or would we take that off the table? Do you kind of know that?
I think it depends. If the Plan B is solid and everything can be worked out and and the impact to everybody is minimal, then you don't want to switch it up. Like, you don't want to get a week in and be like, oh, we found somebody.
Okay.
Like, it's a short enough span of time. I think once we commit to it for those 3 months, and the implications are the implications. And we can talk more about what those are, so everybody knows going in as well.
Well, the other difference too, Dwight, between this and the other one is that was the full year. This, we got a commitment for the person to come back after Thanksgiving break, and we never had a commitment for the person to come back. We had a commitment that they would let us know if they were coming back. So that was a big difference.
Yeah,
makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we really appreciate everybody coming out. We really appreciate our administration working together hard on this, and we appreciate all the staff that came out and put their ideas in. We really appreciate the parents that were, it's important that you let us know. That's, we want to make sure that we keep everybody up to speed. So again, next Monday, Wardsboro School will also be live on TV. And we should have BCTV for that, right?
Yep, they'll be there as well.
So,
they are here. They're on.
Oh, they are here.
They're here. Yep.
And then if anybody, like I said, if anybody has any ideas between now and then, please reach out to either Tracy, to Wardsboro, Dover, or to the central office, and you can leave a message for any one of them. And we hope to see you all next Monday, and keep your fingers crossed that somebody answers the phone. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn at 6:39 p.m.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chad. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So unanimous decision to adjourn at 6:39. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the summer.